The Frontline starts now.
And we're back after a little bit of a hiatus, thanks to Englehart and a couple of other things that were going on, some crazy playoff runs. And unfortunately, we're making this episode. And that is the episode in which we eulogize the North Bay Battalion and the Powassan Voodoos season. Thank you, Ben. Really appreciate you being back. Anyways, Kortney Kenny, please be joined by Kassie Millen, Harrison from the Garrison, and of course, producer Ben, who's allowed to talk again. It's remarkable. He's been unleashed.
I will decide when I talk.
The muzzle is off.
The muzzle is off.
I'm still going to just do sound effects.
You could do sound effect. There you go.
He learned a new language. It's just sound bites. He's like Bumblebee in the first Transformers movie.
Yeah.
He can only use radio clips to communicate.
Don't tempt me.
That would actually
Don't tempt me, Frodo.
Yeah, speaking of King Theoden passed away, Bernard Hill. I know you're a really big Lord of the Rings fan down there, Ben. Ben, since so
Oh, this is going to get off the rails.
no,
right away.
real quick.
Immediately.
We're off the rails because you missed you were here for the episodes, but you
Done all the episodes.
yeah, you have, but you weren't on air for these.
Oh, yeah.
So you're a big Lord of the Rings fan.
I try.
And Harrison and I ranked Lord of the Rings. So why don't you rank your all
easy.
6?
Fellowship number 1, Return of the King number 3. Oh, wait, are we doing all 6?
Yeah, all 6.
Yeah, so Fellowship number 1, Return of the King number 2, then Desolation of Smog, then Two Towers, then probably Unexpected Journey and Battle of 5 Armies.
Okay. And we ranked all the Star Wars movies.
Oh, you want me to do all the Star Wars ones?
Yeah.
too?
That was long.
Yeah, no. He blitzed through Lord of the Rings.
That's true.
Well, yeah, but I put a lot of thought into that. Oh, God. Lord of the Rings. Star Wars.
And then we're going to get Cassie's opinion. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, well, can I come back to that? While you guys talk, I will formulate it.
All right, so we'll come back to Ben. Guys, we have a lot of free time on our hands now.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited to look at a calendar and be like, oh, it's just Tuesday. Terrific.
And for Harrison, it was Tuesday.
Yeah. Basically. That's gonna be nice. Sad the season ended the way it did. It doesn't hurt as much as last year. Against Peterborough felt particularly just like the way it ended. It felt a bit more dramatic, I guess. Even though this was in like a comeback and it almost felt over after game 3. So the fact that we kind of got that second spurt of like, oh, wow, this could still happen was just like kind of even things out a bit. It didn't feel as ridiculous, and not going on the road, that definitely helped saving the drive.
Yeah.
So
it would have been a pretty miserable drive home last night.
Yeah, especially from Oshawa.
I figured it out.
Okay, well, 1 second. Let's get Cassie's thoughts on, and we're gonna do a deep dive here on both. We're gonna do some graveside ceremonies here beside the Battalion, and then later the Voodoos. But Kassie, just your thoughts now that we don't have to go to the Sportsplex anymore, and we don't have to go to the Gardens anymore.
I got more time to go to the gym.
Yeah, there you go. Get ready for next year.
I'm excited for that.
Get ready for next year.
Build some more muscle. Take some more girls down.
Yeah, because, it's not like you only go to school for half a day. Oh, I love being back.
Oh, no.
Seriously, it's like, what do you do all day? I just sit around.
I actually don't. I do homework. I clean the house.
Homework, you have 1 class.
I have 2 classes.
Technically 3.
Yeah, but I don't have homework for 1.
Don't worry, we'll get you working out at my dad's cottage, We need someone to paint stuff.
That's your new co-op. Surprise, switcheroo.
Yeah.
You hear this? It's the world's smallest violin. Just for you.
I actually told my dad that. I said, I need something for my intern to do. Do you want her to come out here and paint the walls?
It was manual labor the whole time.
Yeah. Joke's on you.
I mean, for a while I was thinking of being an interior designer. So.
Well, there you go. Interior crocodile alligator. I drive a Chevrolet movie theater. All right, Ben.
All right. Are you ready for this?
Did you have to look up all the Star Wars movies just to get
No,
this
I
right?
just needed to
because
think
we
about it for a
forgot
second.
about New Hope when we did
Oh, no, trust me.
Yeah, we completely forgot to rank that.
All right. Episode 3, number 1. Best. Okay, I know you're going to say Empire Strikes Back. Episode 3, number 1. It's the first one I watched in theaters. Easily
Me too.
best Star Wars movie. Hands down. It's got the action. It's got action. It has
But
dialogue in it.
but did you
It
did
has
you
wipes in it. It's like swipes to go.
did you go to the theater dress up as Anakin like
No.
Harrison did?
Wise move. Wise move. Do not recommend.
No, it's got action. Yeah, the dialogue's it exists. It's one of the dialogues of all time. But I don't know. It's awesome. It's a great movie.
It is awesome.
Then I've got this is gonna get you guys really mad. Guess what my number 2 is?
If you say Last Jedi, you're
Clone
off.
Wars
No,
animated.
No,
Oh.
I'm not doing. No, I'm not doing.
We ranked that though.
We did rank that, to be fair. Yeah.
Wait, we're doing Clone Wars as well.
We ranked anything that came out in theaters as a feature length movie for some reason.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case,
Do you need more time?
no. I'd probably put it. Okay, we'll get there. No,
Okay.
we'll get there. I know where I'd put it then.
Okay.
Just because that was a weird one because it was really technically 2 episodes of a TV show.
Yeah.
All right, so next is episode 1. I love episode 1. It is so nostalgic for me. I love it. It's first of all, the music is dope. Don't even come at me.
No,
those
I will
themes
not fight you
are
on
so
that
good.
on any grounds.
Darth Maul is dope. Wish he had a little bit more character development, but Darth Maul is great in that movie.
we will have a revenge.
And that's
It's
why
just-
the Clone Wars TV show
I
exists.
will say this: it is very nostalgic. That's why it's so high in that list. I just really like it. I know you can pull it apart, but you can pick apart literally any Star Wars
Yeah.
movie, including the original trilogy shills. But episode 1 is second. Then I've got episode 5, Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
I'm not as hot on it as some people are.
Top 3. I'm not upset about that.
It's kind of like I'm not as big of a fan of the original trilogy because I like my Star Wars with a lot of action, and it took me a long time to appreciate those movies because they're very
Not
action. Yeah.
Yeah. I think if I wasn't exposed to it at such a young age as like the first Star Wars, it
Yeah.
wouldn't sit as well with me because I tried to show my girlfriend Jess it, and I forgot how slow, like outside of the first like opening sequence of A New Hope, it's just like, oh, they're just walking through the desert for like 30 minutes, and that's basically all that happens.
And you get the Leia and Luke kiss scene, and that's
yeah, that's kind of sus.
awkward.
Well, that's up there.
Next, I have episode 6. I like episode 6 a lot. It was a little bit darker, a little bit edgier. You get Ewoks killing people.
And then they immediately play the bongos on the helmets that they would have taken off
Yeah.
the heads of those people that they killed.
Yeah, episode 6 is kind of an interesting movie because I don't know exactly where to rank it, but I felt like this was appropriate. Then I have episode 2.
Okay.
I know episode 2 has there's a lot of things wrong with it, but again, it goes back to like, it's just action.
Well, if we're
Great
going to say
action.
episode 3 has some of the dialogue of all time, episode 2 has some of the
Oh,
dialogue
yeah.
of all
Yeah,
time.
but here's the thing: if you watch it from I actually don't mind. This is another hot take. I don't mind the dialogue that Anakin does, even though it's super cringy, because you have to remember he's like,
19.
and this is the first interaction you have with this woman that he's been obsessing with. So I kind of like, it makes me like, it's kind of relatable,
Yeah.
but it's still cringy.
Yeah.
Also, why was Padme wearing that outfit, trying to seduce him?
Yeah.
Who knows? And then I have episode 7. I
They
love.
can't do it because then their lives would be destroyed and
Yeah.
they would be forfeit.
I like episode. Then I have episode 7, Force Awakens, which I think was fantastic. And I know what you're saying. Where the fuck's A New Hope? It's coming.
Explicit.
I just thought it was. I just thought
right
it was
away.
a really good movie that took Star Wars into the new era. So you have the new sound effects, you have the new cinematography and VFX and everything like that. And it just did a good job of having a little bit of the past, but also it wasn't an amazing movie in terms of lore, or if you think about it as an extended universe. But if you think about it as a film, I think it did a really good job coming back after 10 years away.
I don't think you could have done better than that movie did in order to try and start something new.
And it teased a lot of stuff that was interesting.
It's just a shame that they didn't follow up on most of it.
Then I have episode 4. I think A New Hope's just kind of bland. It's all right. It's like vanilla. It's not bad. It's not great. You know, it's there's some things that are good about it.
Yeah.
But it also, like, I think episode 5 is where they hit their stride the most. But
It was, again, a building block.
yes, so I appreciate what it did. But I think in the hindsight, if you were to watch them now, they're just it's a little boring. You know, that's a hot take, but I'll stand by it. Plus the like lightsaber fight sucks.
Yeah.
And have you guys ever seen the remade
Oh,
lightsaber
it's so
fight?
good. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That like animation that
It's not
came
even. I
out
think
like
it's CGI, Or
Yeah,
they
like-
recreated it or whatever.
Came out like 5 years ago, and
Yeah. Then I have Clone Wars, the movie. Again, it's not bad. It's just the first couple episodes of the TV series. Then I have episode 8. Courtney knows this. I don't hate episode 8. I think it was good, but I also think I actually don't hate what they did with Luke's character. I hate the way that Luke is in the extended universe because I think he's too full of himself and pious.
that's fair.
And it really bugs me. Like anything, even like the Mandalorian era of Luke, it's just dumb because I'm like, this guy went from being how he was in episode 4 and 5, who he was kind of like, I don't know, he would.
Well, episode 6 Luke's kind of full of himself too. Like when he walks into Jabba's palace and he's just straight up like wrecking the guards and stuff. Like
my issue is that post episode 6 Luke is like perfect. He's like the perfect Jedi, and he's not. I liked how in episode 8 you saw pieces of him from 4 and 5. Now there was a lot of character development that happened off screen, and that's an issue. But I liked how they kind of humanized him a little bit. That's my kind of hot take. But I understand why people don't like him.
He kind of goes from the character that is like all emotion and to basically robotic,
Yeah.
in a sense, which isn't what his character is, especially in Legends stuff.
Yeah, I didn't like Legends of Luke though.
He's not perfect, but he's a bit more balanced than
Yeah.
a version that we have now.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It just depends on your take of it. And I haven't read enough of the extended stuff that's canon technically now to get an idea of his character development. What else was I going to say about episode 8? There was something else. I can't remember. Anyways, I liked episode 8. I think there were some issues with it. I think it went in a direction that it could have been better, but I think it was all right.
I think as a mainline Star Wars film, it fails. If it was one of the sort of shows that took the ideas that they had for each of the subplots, fleshed them out, and had as like an episode or something, I don't think that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
But as like a mainline story, it kind of falters.
I wish there was, and I understand again with Luke and the projection and stuff at the end, I kind of wish there was a lightsaber fight. Whatever. I didn't hate it. I know a lot of people and some people across the table really hated it. I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was amazing, but I thought it was decent.
you know what I'll give episode 8?
I know what you'll give episode 8.
Okay, guess.
Fucking giant pile of shit.
This episode's just explicit all over the place.
Immediately. Welcome back.
No. Where I will give episode 8 marks is that it is the best visually. It is the best cinematic, like cinematography wise, like visual wise. I would think episode 8 is the prettiest and most gorgeous looking out of all the films. You think of when she does that the Holdo maneuver, which is so stupid.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's very visually appealing. A lot of stuff with the casino stuff is visually appealing. The actual like footwork on the ground with the salt and everything that they're coming out with the speeders and everything, that's very visually appealing. Like there's a lot of great stuff that they did artistically like that. It's just the actual story and everything is it takes away a lot from that movie.
Yeah. There's also a lot of stuff that the extended universe did that was really messed up too, and people forget about that. But then they'll be like, canon's done. Anyways, episode 9's last. Episode 9 was just, it's a movie. I just hate the fact that it felt like the problem is they didn't have a cohesive vision.
No.
And that bugged me about it. And I think after watching,
Well, the sequel trilogy didn't have a cohesive vision.
that's what I mean.
Oh, okay.
What is it? Colin Trevorrow, I think, was the guy who was
Colin
originally.
Trevorrow or whatever.
His original story was like really cool. I don't even mind the whole like Palpatine coming back thing because there's a very interesting story in the rest of canon that's there, but I don't know. Anyways, it's the bottom one. I just don't like it. It's actually the only Star Wars mainline movie I don't like.
Really?
That where I'm kind of like, I'll watch it, but I kind of don't like it.
Yeah. There's again a lot of visually really interesting things. Like the Sith homeworld looks really cool. It's like, oh, this really weird sense of in between worlds and lightning and all that, and the technical feat of getting all those ships on screen at the very end was just like, hats off to you just for doing that from a technical perspective. But outside of that, there's not a whole lot that I'm super into about that movie.
No, me neither.
It's part of the problem, like with that trilogy, is a problem with a lot of movies that started around that time. Same thing with like the DCEU and a lot of big franchises, is they tried to Marvel it without having a plan, and it bit them in the butt time and time again.
Yeah. And then the thing that's funny about it too is when you think about when Marvel started, they obviously didn't have a fleshed out plan. They just said this would be cool to be able to do, and then they fleshed it out as they went. But it worked out really well for them. It's the same thing with like J.K. Rowling talking about how Harry Potter just like walked into her head fully formed and everything. It's like, no, it didn't.
No.
There's clearly obviously things later on in the series that you just added in.
Her just saying stuff? What?
Yeah, I know, right?
Anyway.
This was before it became a problem.
But no, I think that's a respectable list. You know what's funny about episode 9 is that I didn't hate it the first time I watched it. I was like, yeah, that was actually pretty good. And now the more I've seen it and the more as time's gone on, I'm like, this movie sucks. I will say though, the one thing that every single time I watch it, it's like in the first 5 minutes when Kylo Ren's like trying to get his way to Exegol, and he gets there, every single time I'm like, I'm so in with this movie. And then the movie happens and I get slowly pushed out. But when it happens is the whole quote of the I've been every single thing you've ever heard inside your head, or every voice. And it's like the different voices of like Vader, Snoke, and then Palpatine. And I'm like, I'm so in. And then the movie sucks. But
Yeah.
Oh,
anyways.
wait, my list was inverted. Oops.
Episode 9 is your
It
favorite.
was upside down.
Surprise.
Yeah, surprise. Anyways, now that Cassie's fallen asleep, we'll take a quick commercial break to let her get some Z's, and then we'll come back and we'll hold our first graveside ceremony for the North Bay Battalion.
Average Joe's Eatery and Patio Bar is North Bay's only year-round lakefront restaurant. On the shores of beautiful Trout Lake, we have been serving delicious food and stunning views since 1999. Indulge in one of our delicious menu items, or simply sit with a cocktail in hand and watch the beauty of Trout Lake before your eyes. Check us out online at averagejoes.net or visit us in person at 3501 Trout Lake Road, North Bay.
Hey there, I'm Mike the Financial Advisor. When you strip it down to its core and you take away all the industry jargon, I help people solve financial concerns. So if you're concerned that you'll never save enough to retire comfortably, or that your kid is going to graduate post-secondary $40,000 in debt, or maybe even that life is going to take a really unfortunate sideways turn and somebody is going to have to open a GoFundMe page for you and your family, I can help you prevent all of those things from happening. If you want to see how, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Just do a search for Mike the Financial Advisor. You should find me.
You rely on your vehicle to take you to the places that matter most to you, so bring your vehicle to the team you can rely on to keep it running at its best. Dave's Automotive Services. Whether you're getting your car or truck ready for the season with a tire change, making sure you're safe on the road with an inspection and certification, or doing your due diligence to keep your vehicle in tip-top shape with regular maintenance, Dave's Automotive Services has you covered. Expert troubleshooting, quality repairs, and time-efficient labor are the 3 stars of service you can expect when you bring your car or truck to Dave's Automotive Services at 411 Airport Road. Call 705-478-5544 and book your appointment today.
Dearly beloved, we gather here today after another season in which the North Bay Battalion failed to get past the Eastern Conference Finals. A combined 6-12 in these 3 Eastern Conference Finals for this core group of players. And the hockey season officially comes to an end after a 6-1 loss against the Oshawa Generals in Game 7. And here we are. And if we can cut the music now.
Oh, no. You wanted me to cut it?
Oh, no, just keep going then. Who do you think you are? Yeah, there we go. I kind of said a lot of what I was feeling last night on our live after action report. Of course, this is coming out on Thursday, so it's a couple of days removed, but we are recording this immediately the day after. Couple of things. The guy, I think it's Ethan Toms is his name, that put the puck in for the 6-1 goal.
Yeah.
That's Bush League at that point. But it wasn't as Bush League as, and we're going explicit here, the fucking tweet, Oshawa.
Yep.
Way to be fucking assholes. Holy shit. Anyways, I got my explicits out of there. Ben was allowed to get a couple in there, so I got mine out. Not on this part.
The fuck you talking about?
Who do you think you are, Ben? But that was brutal. And I'm sure we can throw it on the screen here if you're watching on YouTube in the post-production. But basically the tweet was, the general said, 4th time's the charm, eh, OHL Battalion? And the battalion took the high road and just said, good luck in the OHL finals. Harrison, I'm going to go around the table here, so I'll start with Kassie, actually. Kassie, I know we talked about the tweet very briefly, so I know it was definitely in your stratosphere of things going on. But what did you think of that? That to me, that's a very classless tweet.
That is just honestly disrespectful at that point. I mean, you won. What more do you want? And the Battalion did give you a run for your money. So you're not the best of the team that you thought you were, kind of. So, I mean, I wouldn't be on my high horse with that, but...
How many hands do you think that horse is?
I don't even want to guess at this point.
Harrison?
Look, it is what it is, and it sucks, and it's a crappy tweet. It's on brand for how the Generals have run their social
That's
media.
fair, yeah.
So that part, I'm just like, okay, I get it. You made the brand snark. It sucks, but I get it. And go Knights.
Yeah, I never thought I would say
Yeah,
that
like-
either, but after that tweet, yeah, 100%.
I'm just like, oh, okay,
I'm
cool.
on the bandwagon now. Also, there was a couple of tweets too from Generals Live. I'll bring them up though. But Ben, sorry, your thoughts on?
Well,
you're the first one to send that.
Well, I
tweet.
was gonna say when I sent it, I actually didn't realize it was from the Generals. I thought it was from like a fan account, and so I'm like, oh wow, that's kind of like, you know how there's different like Generals Live or something like that. I was like, oh, that's kind of okay, whatever. And then I clicked on it, I'm like, oh, this is I didn't know what their social media was like, and so when I saw it, I was like, that's pretty disrespectful. And there is a level of like snarkiness, but I feel like that's kind of going over the line a little bit.
It's extra like immediately after the game.
It seemed unnecessary. And I would say the same thing if the Battalion won and they said something like couldn't hold a 3-0 lead or something like that.
Yeah.
I would still say the same thing. It's like it's a bad tweet. Not that I think North Bay would ever do that, because that's not, they're very professional with their social media. And yeah, so with the Generals, it's just kind of like, I get you're trying to toe the line, but I think they crossed it a little bit. I mean, it is what it is. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's just a dumb tweet, but it's still just unnecessary.
It's bad karma for a team that's going to lose in 5 or 6 games to the London Knights. Because, and this is, whereas last year I thought if the Battalion got past Peterborough, London did not stand a chance. And obviously London lost to Peterborough too. But this year I was like, man, if the Battalion get past this, whoever, they are hoping it's Saginaw, because then they can go to the Memorial Cup, because whoever comes out of the West is probably going to win, because that's how big of a disparity there is. So I really hope that the Knights just beat the crap out of the Gens.
Yeah.
Generals Live, who is a Twitter account that I usually actually kind of enjoy. This guy's pretty good at tweeting. Here's a little bit of a taste of some of the stuff that he had from the series that I've been kind of saving up. Richie is high-sticked and bleeding. Second time that's happened tonight. It's not called again. 8 penalty minutes North Bay should have had from those and instead got 0. Are we watching the same series, my guy?
Yeah.
I guess all the crying North Bay has done all series is paying off now. They're not even being called for delay of game penalties. Okay. Romani has been taking shots at guys after the whistle every chance he's gotten tonight, so Lockhart gives him a slash after he goes offside. Van Steensel slashes Lockhart after. I'm sure Lockhart will much prefer that to the dirty blindside hit he threw him in Game 3.
Didn't he trip over himself?
Yep. McIver doesn't have great stats this series, but he's made a couple of huge saves.
Just a couple.
Goalie of the week.
This guy.
I will say this too with the Generals tweet, is it doesn't make sense. So if it would have been the Battalion up 3-0 and they would have lost 4 straight games, I would understand the tweet a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it is weird when you almost blew a 3-0 lead in the series.
Yeah.
And then you just managed to salvage it on the last game. And you guys got blown out the game before.
Yeah.
And looked not very good.
They looked like they were a junior A team playing the Battalion in game 6. They didn't look great. They were very tired looking. I do think that being blown out that way really woke up the Generals, though, and as evident by the next night, because that is a good team. But when they're not playing like Beckett Seneca, and you just beat the pants off Oster the night before, and you can only manage 1 goal. That's very disheartening, especially in an elimination game like that. But so I know it's been talked about a lot, so I won't spend much time on it. I'll get all your thoughts on this as well. But those tweets where he's talking about the penalties. Yes, North Bay's penalties that were called against the Battalion were penalties. Mm-hmm. But there were calls that were the exact same that Oshawa did not get. You know what I mean? Like, there would be so much slashing going on against Battalion players, and then a Battalion player would do it once, and 2 minutes. 2 minutes. And that's what really, the Gens played a solid first 3 games, but that's what really killed the Battalion in those 3 games. A constant march to the penalty box. And again, you can argue the Battalion's discipline 100%. 100%. But when those same calls are not being called the other way, that's when it gets a little ridiculous. And then obviously they showed in game 6 that, hey, we're pretty good on the power play. But Kassie, just your thoughts on the lack of maybe penalties called both ways in that series, because it seemed pretty egregious to me.
Yeah, I think the penalties definitely affected the outcome. There we go. For sure, like when Oshawa is not getting as many penalties, then it definitely affects the Battalion. Oh my god, I don't even know the words.
No, you're doing great.
It affects the Battalion's performance because they're taking the brunt of it, and so they're trying to make up for that lost time where the generals just keep getting the time or
the power play time.
Yeah.
Basically
getting the chances for those goals.
Well, it's basically that. Whether you get scored on or not when you're down a man, there's other factors that play into it. It's not just, okay, we went down because we went down a man. You're tired. You got to play your top guys more. You got to get in front of pucks. That hurts you. You can take it. You're a hockey player. But it forces you to play a different style of hockey. It forces you to exert more energy, which, hey, in third periods, late in the second, that starts to wear on you. And it's not an even playing field. And not that it has to be. It's just when things are getting called a certain way, you expect them to be called back in kind, because that's how hockey has been played in basically the modern era. Whether you agree with that or not is a different story, but the way that hockey gets called nowadays is you try and even it out. And that was not the case. It wasn't a great look throughout the series. Is it the reason the Battalion lost Game 7? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
No,
Let's
nothing
make that
was called.
very clear.
Yeah, nothing was called in Game 7.
The only thing
one.
that was called was Therrien getting tripped on what was a very clear odd man rush about to develop, and if they didn't call that there, it would have been basically to a point where, okay, nothing's going to get called except for a weird miscue at the end, but we can gloss over that. So again, it's not the reason the Battalion lost Game 7, but throughout the series, it played a factor in how the game was played.
Yeah, I would say for sure in Game 7, it did not play a factor at all. Games 1, 2, and 3, for sure it played a factor. Games 4 and 5, it played a factor, but the Battalion were able to overcome that. And then Game 6, it didn't, because the Battalion actually got more power plays than the Generals. Ben, I know you were along for the ride with the after-action report, so and obviously seeing our meltdowns in the chats about it too. So hopping on the bandwagon of that.
Yeah, the thing with officiating is I'm not a big fan of. It's weird because if you obviously as Battalion fans we lean one way, because yes, the officiating was very. I mean, objectively speaking, as somebody who's like a neutral fan, it was very skewed towards Oshawa. I think Oshawa fans complaining about refereeing is dumb because in that last game, as you said, one penalty was called. There was more penalties that happened, but one penalty was called. I think the thing about the officiating to me is like the officiating was a moot point when it comes down to how the Battalion, like how this series shook up. Because at the end of the day, if the Battalion got screwed over by the refs, I don't think they kind of overcame it to a point where you got to the pinnacle Game 7, right? You overcame some not so sharp performances early on in the series, coupled with dealing with the referees. You come back, you get to a Game 7, and they just look flat, like all game. And you can't. And I don't care what side you're on. I don't think you can say anything about the refs did not affect that game in any way.
No, game 7, 100% not.
You got one penalty. So I think for me, like the conversation with the reffing, in the first little bit was abysmal, but I think at the end of the day, I just don't really care about the refereeing because like they lost because they just didn't come out and perform when they had to perform. And that's probably the most like heartbreaking thing about it is that they kind of get screwed over because,
to be fair, in 3 out of the 4 elimination games that they faced, they came out and performed.
Yep.
Yeah.
But in that 4th one, they did not. I agree, 100%. I'm not going to harp on the refs for that game at all because there's nothing to harp on. It's just, again, like I said, those first 3 games, they played a factor. Games 4 and 5, they played a factor, but the Battalion were able to rise against that. Also, to the point of Mike McIver not playing great this series, McIver kept the Battalion in games 1, in game 2, in game 3, kept them in game 4, especially when they were down to the end in overtime, kept them in game 5, in which the Battalion were getting their faces caved in the first overtime period. And then, and even the Battalion had to kill off a penalty in that first overtime period as well before second OT, Nelson finishes off that great play by Vilmanis. He played fantastic in game 6, even though the Battalion beat them 8-1. Oshawa got some really good looks. And I would say, well, he didn't play fantastic in game 7. He played well enough that he needed help in front of him.
Mike kept that game from being, he kept them in that series. If Mike didn't play the way, if he was an average goaltender, this series would have been over in like 4 or 5 games.
Yep.
But he stood on his head, kept them in the series. And even in the last game, outside, I think it was the second goal where he probably should have had it. All those other goals are not his fault.
No.
And it just comes down to like, they just didn't, last night was just weird. It was just a weird game because you go in and it's the most pivotal game that you've played the entire year because they swept, basically played 9 games in the first 2 rounds, right? Out of a possible 14. I think, is that how that math works? Yeah. 9 games out of a possible 14. So you had a pretty easy first 2 rounds in comparison to last year.
Yeah.
And Oshawa and North Bay were pretty neck and neck in terms of skill. I still think that North Bay had a little bit, especially after the trade deadline, I think they were a little bit ahead of Oshawa in terms of overall depth.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating because it just felt, and I feel really bad for, and I know we'll get to this, but I feel really bad for a lot of the players who aren't going to be back because the turnovers, it's going to be very interesting offseason. But at the end of the day, I don't know. It just felt like maybe you as a Leafs fan can maybe speak to this a little bit more, but it felt like it wasn't the same team that played the last 3 games.
It's exactly that. That is welcome to the fan club, my friend.
I'm a Jays fan. I've been through it.
Hey, well, at least the Leafs know how to win a game in the playoffs. Yeah. And evident by this year's, and to be fair, again, the thing that's frustrating about this, or that's maybe not so frustrating about this Leafs team this season, is that they came out and they played a good game 7 and they didn't play flat. And Ilya Samsonov, even though I don't like him, did not play bad in game 7. I think if you have Wool in that, you still win that game. But, that's where I'm not really mad about the Leafs. But this is exactly it. Every time they're down 3-1 or they're down 3-0 and they storm back and they just don't get there. However, I don't think we can emphasize the fact that you were down 3-0 and came back to make it to game 7.
Yeah, but sorry, Harrison, just one last quick thing, and then I'll let you talk as much as you want. I think the thing that hurts about that game 7 is that they did claw their way back.
Yeah.
And if it would have been a close game and they fought to the end and they would have fallen, I don't think anybody would have been disappointed. No. Right? Like you would have been like, oh man, that sucks, but it was a good game. I think it's just the way that the game shook out. And I know this obviously, like everybody wants to win and this isn't the case, but just watching it, it just felt like there was something that was just missing. I don't know how to really describe it. I don't know if you can't even say it was tired because Oshawa also played the game before. Mm-hmm. I don't know. There was just something where it's like they just, nobody looked like they wanted to win last night.
Except for the first 30 seconds.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know how else. I'm trying to dance around it in a nice way, but it just, and obviously I know that they want to win. Like who doesn't want to win? Mm-hmm. Right. And again, and that's like, you look at like the Wakeleys and the Nelsons and the I mean, Dom wasn't in that, but the people that aren't coming back, the Ertles, right? Vilmanis, who's probably not going to be back in the league next year. Those people who this was their last chance for some glory. It just felt, I don't know. I don't know if there was any one player who I don't know. It just didn't feel like anybody wanted to take the game into their own hands, until it was almost out of reach.
Yep.
Yeah, we saw a couple of Ertl trying to make individual plays, and that's kind of what it was last night. Is the cohesion wasn't what it had been, and it felt like individual attempts to try and claw it back, and nothing clicked. I just wanted to talk briefly on Mike's stats while I have them up. Is throughout the regular season, McIver only played 18 games. He had a 378 goals against and an 876 save percentage. Throughout 16 games in the playoffs, he had 10 wins, a 914 save percentage, and a 268 goals against. The dude was
ridiculous.
Unreal for being put in that position.
But he didn't have great stats.
So he made 438 saves in 16 games, which is just unreal.
Now, also the caveat there is that not only did he play well, but he played well in unexpected duty.
Yep.
You had the mental gymnastics that you have to jump through where you think you're not seeing the ice again unless it's a blowout game and they pull Dom. Going into those playoffs, you think, okay, I'm done seeing game action. And then, boom, game 2 against Kingston.
Yep. Correction, that's 15 games.
And you have the guy who's backing you up. Nothing against Charlie Larocque. He's never played an OHL game before.
Well, not only that, but for the first bit, they had a guy from they had Easton Rye from Peterborough who wasn't even Battalion property.
He didn't have, it's not like he was literally the last line of defense in that sense. What are you supposed to do? And he only has played a handful of OHL games that year, right?
Well, he's obviously given you confidence for next year.
The funny thing that I found about Mike, though, is that he played way better in the OHL than he did in the Noge.
Yeah, he didn't play very well, but he also, if you think about that time when he came down to the Voodoos, he hadn't played in 3 months.
No.
It was he had barely played, and then he played Iroquois Falls, and they won that game, I think, 9-2, and his stats were good, but they weren't mind-blowingly good. And then he played French River and lost and got pulled against French River. And I think he played one other game with the Voodoos. But yeah, it's kind of funny. And it also goes to show I think everyone knew that was going to be the decision, but they made the right decision in keeping him over Charlie Robertson.
It would have been a very nothing against Charlie Robertson. It would have, do the Battalion get as far as they get if Mike doesn't have, and not even if Mike was in net, if he doesn't have the playoffs that he has, do they sweep Sudbury? Do they get to a game 7 against Oshawa? Definitely not.
Definitely not game 7. Because he was, as Dave Laxdal said, the coach of the Generals, he was the Battalion's backbone. 100% he was. I don't think anybody, and their cousin thought North Bay was going to sweep Sudbury. I think everybody knew it could be a short series against Kingston.
Yeah.
And 5 games was, even then, that was oh, okay, well, they lost one, darn. But it also the adversity as well that they had to go through. Game 1 losing Anthony Romani, game 2 losing Dom. Those are 2 big key cogs. And then you had Dallin Wakely step up on the goal scoring category, and then you had Mike come in and play just as well, if not better than Dom. You know what I mean? So I think without Mike, they don't sweep Sudbury. Well, revisionist history is weird because you can sit here and say, well, Sudbury could lose easily in 6 with how poorly they played that series, or they could lose in 5. But they definitely don't get to game 7 against Oshawa. If all the factors are the same, they don't get to game 7 with Oshawa.
No, they don't. There was quite a few moments where it was all Mike, and one of the most glaring issues on the team ended up being just net from presence. They could not,
that home plate area,
just terrible. It was a problem early on in the season, and then after the Christmas break, it started to get better. It wasn't perfect, but it was a lot better. And slowly throughout the playoffs, that old demon popped its head up again, and it just wasn't fixed.
Yeah.
That was, I think, the biggest issue with the last game.
Yeah.
Was that there were a couple of goals where they just kind of, I think it was the third goal where it was just, they were completely like, they just went right through the Battalion defense.
Yeah. Part of the problem early on was getting caught in odd man rushes at the very beginning of the season, and then that's exactly what happened in Game 7 was odd man rushes developed, and they just were powerless to stop it. They were caught out of position every time.
Now, here's a question really quick. Do you think that going in from the beginning of the season, do you think they outperformed and now I know that I said at the beginning of the year, they have to win the OHL, the Ross Roberts and Ross Roberts. Oh, was that your question?
No, well, I was going to get to a point because that was one of the things that you had asked me early on in this room. You said, what's a successful season for the Battalion?
Okay.
I gave my answer on the broadcast last night.
Yes.
But no.
Sorry, you're saying were you answering my question?
Okay.
You don't think they would have gotten at the beginning of the year?
No,
we're all fucked up now.
Yeah,
We're going.
geez.
Okay.
Let's go back to the beginning.
The beginning, way back when things were still nice, back in October. The question you posed to me is, what would be a successful season for the North Bay Battalion? You and I both agreed at that time, even with the swoon that they would eventually go on, for a month or two, and we can pose this question to everyone at the table. What makes a successful season for the North Bay Battalion? And I said, you have to make the finals with this core. You have to make the finals. I still am of that opinion. Year one of this core was successful. You were playing with house money. You made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. You weren't beating Hamilton. Everybody knew that going into the series. I think people were a little bit sad that you got swept by Hamilton. But the fact of the matter is that team was not going to lose. Their Arbor Jackeye was playing out of his mind. I can't remember the goaltender's name for the life of me. Mason McTavish was playing out of his mind. That Bulldogs team was built to win, and they won, and they went to the Memorial Cup Finals, in which they lost. So they're a pretty darn good team. Year two, there's no, other than the fact that Peterborough went on an unprecedented run in the playoffs, to me, there's no excuses as to why you lose that series. Other than the fact that Barry took a lot out of the Battalion, for sure, in round two. You're a 99-point team in the regular season up against a 74-point team. And you lose that series in 7, but that's okay. We had one more kick at the can with this core. It still was a disappointment. The season wasn't successful. You had to get to the finals. You very much could have won the OHL championship last year. Last year's team to me feels like the 2015 version where if they beat the Generals, they were going to the Memorial Cup because they were going to get past the Erie Otters. Last year's team winning the championship, beating London hands down. This year's team, again, in the playoffs, it was, again, welcome to being a Leafs fan. How are they going to perform in the playoffs? Are they going to get over that hump? Once they swept Sudbury, it was like, this is the team. This is the team to do it because Sudbury, even though they finished where they finished in the standings, Sudbury was a friggin' good team. They had David Goyette, Quinton Musty, Dalibor Dvorsky, 2 bounty hunters who, probably shouldn't have been playing, but they were still good players, Evan Konyan and Villeneuve. The questions with Sudbury came from goaltending Vondras, who didn't play the first couple of games, Vandenberg, and also the defense. And the Battalion exposed that like a raw nerve, did everything that they had to. How do you lose a game in which you are winning 5-2 and don't allow a shot in the second period? Right? The Battalion figured out a way to win that game and beat the Wolves and sweep them. Also, that was the best night in North Bay history when they swept the Wolves because the Voodoos won game 1 of the OHL championship that night.
Back when we were happy.
Yeah, everything was great. There was no rain. So to me, this season is, and this isn't me ragging on the players because I've got a thing coming up for the players. Ultimately, it's unsuccessful in my mind.
Yeah, it was the question posed at the beginning. I remember we talked about it during the pregame, the preseason game with Owen Sound. We talked about this question, and it was pretty much unanimous that it was at the very least a finals appearance because of the reasons you stated. Like, you have this core, kind of a last dance. you got to make something happen at the very least, especially with, at the time, the thought that Saginaw was the Memorial Cup host. So you have a chance to go for a Mem Cup as well, at the very least. If you make the finals, that ended up not being reality with London making it. But at the same time, it was, you got to make a finals appearance. You got to get over that hump. You got to get that monkey off your back. And, well, we're sitting here talking like this.
Kassie, was a success or not a success for you?
Not a success. I'm gonna say the same thing as you. Like, if it
You
was
could have an original thought, Kassie.
I know. I'm just saying, like, that. I don't know. I could have described it in different words, but basically, my train of thought was the same as Kortney's for a successful year. You're judging me, and I can see
I'm not
it.
judging you.
You're making me stutter.
All right,
Okay.
Ben.
Making you sorry.
You're a terrible producer. Awful. Worst one we've ever had.
So, okay. The only one you've ever had.
Damn it.
So, okay, at the beginning of the season, I said in so many words that they needed to win. I think I said they needed to win the.
You said they needed to win the OHL Cup.
Yeah. And you said that to Adam Dennis.
Did they?
They did
Did
not.
they win the OHL
No,
Cup?
they did
then
not.
it's not a success.
And you said that right to Adam Dennis.
I did.
And then that's what
And-
Adam Dennis told you was the J. Ross Robertson J. Ross Robertson Award.
Well, I don't know why they wouldn't call the OHL Cup, but I digress. But then I think at the beginning, the way that the season started at the beginning of the year, I was like, I don't know if this team can do it because there were a lot of holes and there was a lot of question marks. Then you get to the and also they were kind of this 500 team for most of the season, and you're like, what's happening? So, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So
Have an original
when you
thought,
got
Ben.
to the trade, I'm trying, but Cassie's judging me over there, and he's causing me to stutter.
I'm not judging. I'm just waiting for an answer.
Okay, so when we got to I'm getting to my answer. When we got to the trade deadline, I said they either need to buy or sell, but if they buy, they better win, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did they buy?
Mm-hmm.
And did they win?
Nope.
It was so close. Now,
I don't care. I don't
They
care how
tied-
close
they-
they were.
now I'm not saying that makes it successful or anything. It was just, it was
tied
so close.
they tied their playoff wins from last year, 11.
Okay,
That's what they did.
there was a lot of positive from this season. I think
100%.
the trade deadline was fantastic. I think the addition of Vilmanis and the Blanc twins were great. Ertl had a fantastic season, especially near I would say probably the first quarter was a little rough, but once he got on that top line, obviously the top three guys were phenomenal.
You'll never see a line like that ever
No.
again.
The fact that who was the guy who won that one, I think it was player of the year or whatever. Cowan, yeah.
Easton Cowan.
Yeah, for some reason. With 96 points.
I mean-
it was in like 47 games
I don't
or
care.
something ridiculous.
No, he played like 58.
He played 58.
I mean, the regular season is 68.
It was a 47 game point streak.
yeah,
That's what
which
it was.
100% is fair. That's fair, but like Anthony
don't
Romani,
care.
but
Is it more impressive for you to get a point every game, or is it more impressive for you to get like a bunch of points in game? It doesn't matter. Anyways,
well, the fact to me with Easton Cowan, I know we're derailing your answer here. The thing about Easton Cowan is, he finished with like 96 points, but Anthony Romani finished with 111,
yeah.
and Goyette finished with 118. In 10 extra games played, sure, but can he make up that difference in those 10 games? I mean, we'll never know. What ifs and buts, and candy corn or whatever the thing is. I love me some candy corn. But Romani also had almost 60 goals.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's like not having Austin Matthews in the Hart finalist category, but
Wait, I did not see that.
yeah, it's McKinnon, McDavid, and Kucherov.
And
Yeah.
But Matthews is up for the Selke, which I'm okay with.
but
though,
Romani, I would say, made much bigger of an impact too on the Battalion than Cohen made on the Knights.
Oh, 100%.
Right? So anyways, the top line was fantastic. Terrian got a good step forward. Procession near the end of the season made a huge step forward. He was a little up and down in the early parts of the season, but near the end, Pazzi had some moments. Obviously, Mike, what he did in the playoffs. Dom was a little bit up and down. He had some injury stuff, but he still ended up with some respectable OHL numbers. the players, like on an individual basis, all played really, really well. Like there's not a lot of like bad performances, but it's very similar to last year where when you look at people individually, like it's not about the individual performance, it's how you perform as a team.
Well, that was Game 7 in a nutshell.
Yeah. And so when you look at it, I think in some ways the Battalion, I think, achieved exactly what they should have in terms of getting to a Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. But at the end of the day, they didn't do what they set out to do. And now, yes, they have a bunch of draft picks. But if you look at this team next year, and it's hard because I don't want to be super negative about the team, but like at the end of the day, the easy corporate answer would be they gave it their all, they played really well, it's heartbreaking. But the reality is this is the third time that you've lost in the finals. In the last, arguably, I don't even say arguably, the last two finals you should have won. You should have been in the conference finals in back-to-back years. And they weren't.
The OHL finals in back-to-back years.
Sorry, the OHL finals in back-to-back years.
Yeah.
You should have gone to the Memorial Cup last year and done really well. So there's just when you look at next year, it's like there's no Nelson, right? Most likely. There's probably no Dom. You lose Ertl.
Well, let's do a deep dive on those players.
Yeah.
Because next year, I still think that they're going to field. I think that they're still going to ice a competitive team. I don't think they're Central Division champs. I don't think that they'll probably make it to the second round.
They're like middle of the pack.
Yeah, I think so. Because you're like, let's talk about the players that you are losing and the players you could potentially be losing. So right off the hop, you're losing Ertl, Christopoulos, Arnsby. That's a lot of leadership. That's a lot of grit out the door. You are losing arguably one of the best defensive defensemen in the league. You're losing one of the best defensive forwards in the league, who hits everything. And I credit to Liam Arnsby. I thought he really toned down on taking unnecessary penalties this year as well. He still took a couple that I was like, come on, Liam. Like, what are you doing, bud? But, you're losing those 300%. They're not coming back because they can't. You're likely losing Ty because he signed his entry-level deal. You're likely losing Dom because he signed his entry-level deal. You're likely losing Vilmanis because he signed his entry-level deal. So that's three. You're losing your best defenseman. You're losing one of your best forwards. And you're losing your top goalie. Although, again, the gap between Dom and Mike really slimmed in the playoffs.
But I think there's a big caveat here with that is just because they do well in the playoffs doesn't necessarily mean that
100%. But knowing Mike as a person, I have all the confidence in the world.
So do I. I'm just, yeah.
There is still, how is he going to hit the ground running next year for sure, especially with maybe.
And can he do 45 games in a season? That's a lot of workload, right?
It is. Because even with the U18 Trappers, he split it down the middle with Mike Perkart. So now we got up front, you might be losing, because you can only keep three of them, pretty much everyone from your 2020 draft class. So that's Wakely is from your 2020 draft class. Romani or Van Steensel's from your 2020 draft class. Mathurin's from your 2020 draft class. McDowell is from your 2020 draft class. McDowell only saw one game in the playoffs, so I think that decision's been made. So now that leaves Mathurin, Wakely, and Van Steensel.
And Mathurin's signed too, so.
No, he's not.
He's not signed.
His rights were given up by Detroit. He no longer has any rights fighting team. And he's probably had one of the saddest OHL careers because of injury, because he came in with so much promise. And don't get me wrong, fantastic on the ice.
Played so well in these playoffs.
Yeah. It's just a shame that he gets drafted, can't play a year, and then Detroit's like, can't really do much with that.
Damn, you guys are playing.
It kind of reminds me of the Bertina stuff too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same kind of,
So you could theoretically go into next season with, your OAs being Wakely, Van Steensel, and Mathurin. Whether or not they stick around, we don't know, or if trades are made, or if they sign deals. Because I think Dallin Wakely and Owen Van Steensel are very deserving of contracts. You also have the LeBlanc twins who are that same age group, And that being said, you can move a lot of these guys for picks, if you really want to retool, or even younger players if you want to retool on the fly. Look at what Peterborough's doing. That was a very impressive trade deadline by Peterborough. So that's a lot of your top-end guys just maybe out the door. And then Anthony Romani is a year younger. So does he want to stick around if he sees his buddies going out the door? It's a question that will have to be answered as the offseason moves on. But this could be a very different look team next year, Harrison.
It could. It's a very similar sort of scenario as we found ourselves in the trade deadline. It's not really buying or selling, but it's how do you want to approach the next year and where do you see this team? Because we saw a fairly quiet offseason last year. Basically, the OA moves that you had to make, and outside of that, nothing really. So it's got to be about what the mentality is right now. If we don't see a lot of moves during this offseason, I imagine that they're going to be sticking through and trying to just add a couple of pieces. If we see a big name move, odds are that outside of Vilmanis or any of those other guys, LeBlanc twins are probably up for moving this summer.
What's that Kingston guy? Is that 5 teams?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
That blew up in his face, eh?
Oh my gosh. What a great moment though. It's going to be curious because the offseason is going to tell a lot about what the mentality of what they're going to try and do next year is going to be. And I said this to Ben Long after not last after action report, but the last one, is the first 20 games are going to be so telling about how things are going to happen because you're not as deep as you are this year, plain and simple. If you're playing at a really high level throughout the first 20 games, things are going well, both your goalies are clicking, you may as well buy in, see what you can do, but after 20 games, you can't really waste a lot of time before trying to make some sort of plan to move forward. So off-season, whatever happens there is going to tell what happens. If nothing happens during the offseason, first 20 games, and then basically whatever happens this season is going to basically be set.
Ben, your thoughts on the players that could be gone? Because you were kind of bringing it up.
Yeah. I kind of hope Wakely and Van Steezel aren't here because that means that they signed deals, right?
Yeah.
So from a personal perspective, I kind of hope they're not because that's good for them. There's so many question marks going into this year that, because my big thing is you're really asking Procession and Tarian to be the top line that Romani, Wakely, and Van Steezel were last year, because if you think who's on your top line next year, assuming that Van Steezel and Wakely are gone and Romani's still here, who's on your top line?
I guess Procession and Tarian.
Right?
Yeah.
But then who's on your second line? That's
Pazzi.
So at least going into this year, I think there was...
Oh, and Cook also could be an OA next year.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about it.
Last year, there felt like there was two really... The top 6 was set, and the bottom 6 was a question mark.
Yeah.
And the bottom 6 performed, especially the third line, right? They really performed. The fourth line was definitely a lot younger, and you weren't really expecting much from them, just, get the ice time and stuff. And they, Amidovsky had his moments, and some of the other younger guys had time to shine. But I don't know. And then you look at the defensive core, and you're like, who's your top pairing, right? Mathurin and I'm just trying to think. Is Kennedy probably? Are they opposite hands though?
I don't think it really matters so much.
Yeah,
well, you'd like to keep it that way.
So Mathurin and Kennedy are your top one, and Kennedy's done he's quietly, I think, been solid. He's had his moments of defensive miscues as most people do. He's not a Christopoulos, but he could grow into being, I think, essentially what Christopoulos was. Just a really solid stay-at-home defenseman. He's always been that way. And then, I don't know, there's way too many question marks, and it goes back to do you trade Wakely, Van Steezel, and Romani? Do you go for the rebuild right now? Or do you, because here's the question, going into next season, it's the same question we posed last year. What's a successful season? And getting to the OHL finals, to me, I don't think it's necessarily a realistic goal with the team that's coming in, because there's so many question marks and they're so young.
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to win the OHL Cup next year.
Yeah, well, they definitely won't.
No.
Maybe if they try hard and go to a different league.
They could. They have a 1 in 20 shot at winning the J. Ross Robertson J. Ross Award. But yeah, I don't know. It's it's different. But before we wrap up the Battalion thing, I will say, speaking of, because we'll be going to the Voodoos here in a moment, Wraith Smith's going to get a lot of ice time.
Yep.
And if he plays half
I
as
forgot
good,
about Smith. Oh, I forgot about him.
That dude's going to be a monster.
He never got his comeuppance in the Battalion.
well,
this
he
season.
got to score 1 goal for the Battalion.
No,
this
I
year.
know.
What
but
a goal, though.
Yeah.
in my humble opinion, I think he deserved more of a shot this year.
I would have liked
With
to
the
have
team.
seen him once the Voodoos playoff run ended.
Yeah.
Then insert him into the lineup. I think Wraith Smith has the talent to be a top end guy in the OHL. I think it wouldn't be shocking to see Wraith Smith drafted into the NHL. I am very high on Wraith Smith. He's a great kid. His family's fantastic as well. Shout out to his grandmother. She brought us butter tarts to the one
They were
Voodoos
so
game.
good.
Yeah,
Oh, that was her?
Yep.
well, so we weren't allowed to know.
Oh.
And then she stopped as I was going down to do a post-game interview. No, they had lost that game because that was the Timmins series
Yeah.
in which the home team lost every game. And I went down the stairs and she stopped and she said, "Are you Kortney?" I said, "Yes." And then she said, "I'm Wraith Smith's grandmother." And I said, "I have to ask you because my detective skills found out that this bakery's in Windsor and that's where Wraith is from." So I was like, "Are you the lady who gave us the butter tarts that we weren't allowed to know?" And she said, "You got me." So it was Wraith Smith's grandmother.
Or she just took credit for it. One of the two.
Wait a second.
Wait, I've been bamboozled.
I've been bamboozled. This is terrible. Also, I think it was Wilcox's grandpa that gave us those McDonald's gift cards too.
Yes, I think we ended up figuring that out.
Yeah, so huge thanks to that gentleman. That was a great gift.
Wonderful.
I'm not going to say anything. Anyways, we're not supposed to be talking about the Voodoos right now, Kortney. Bad. But Wraith Smith's going to come up. He's going to get a lot of minutes next year. Another guy who could be on the radar. War number 12 in Powassan this year too.
Who?
Caleb Dawson. It would be nice. They also, have the new picks from this year coming in too. They've already signed 2 of them, their first and their second rounder. So, it's not all doom and gloom like people like myself feel right now.
For the Battalion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Summer's going to do wonders, and then we'll come back and, maybe, who knows if we're covering the Battalion next year. But anyways, again, I could write a novel on this season.
It's been a long 9 months.
It has been. I could really write a novel on all the trials and tribulations, let's put it, of this season. Yeah. All Harrison.
All me.
Yeah. You're
All
the
my
bad guy.
fault. I am.
Yeah, and I'm-
You like it really rough guy.
I'm the problem. It's me.
Hey. Do. Taylor Swift.
Where's my plane?
Cassie's a big Swiftie. She admitted that to us earlier.
I did not admit that.
I like how that's the most animated you got.
She's
Just
really
like,
passionate.
Yeah, I'm gonna board people. That's fine. I'll push people over. A Swiftie?
Yeah. How
Are
dare
you kidding me?
Isn't
How
it
dare you.
plain to see?
Oh.
Not a Swiftie.
Why are you so against being a Swiftie?
She's an Eagles fan.
Well, yeah, but they have a connection to.
Not anymore. He's retired.
Yeah.
And they have a really good podcast. But anyways. Yeah. So again, I said this on the broadcast last night. I just want to give a huge shout out to, Dallin Wakely, Ty Nelson, Owen Van Steensel, Chania Smither, and Dom DiVincentis, because I might not have another chance. That 2020 draft class, even Ertl, Arnsby was always great to me, Christopoulos. These players that have been really great, they come on the podcast, they open up about their lives, they open up about their families. In some cases, their acting career, looking at you, Paul. But I'm very grateful to have gotten to know you guys over the course of 4 seasons, plus a pandemic year, so 5 years for some, like Arnsby and Christopoulos. And that's where my heart breaks, is for those guys. Kind of numb towards everything else, but and Ryan Houlihan's been great to me. John Winstanley's been great to me. Charlie Abbott's been great to me. Those guys who have really gone out of their way to be good to us have been, I'm really sad for them today. And that's kind of where my heart breaks is for those guys. And to Mike, knowing Mike as well. I'd be remiss if I didn't throw him in there. because Mike's always been super nice to me. Cash money, baby. Anyways, I just wanted to finish up the battalion talking about those guys, because those guys are going to go down as the guys that we remember, like Barclay Goodrow, like Mike Amadio, like Nick Paul, regardless of where they go on from here. Because I can still tell you right now where I was standing when Jamie Lewis walked over the blue line and scored the game-winning goal against Oshawa with like 9 minutes left on the clock to clinch we didn't know it at the time, but to clinch the Eastern Conference Finals that first year. A guy like Jamie Lewis, who hasn't gone on to do much in hockey since, you still remember the name. You still remember the Connor Jarvis. You still remember, I mean, Marcus McIver was here waving a flag. I mean, he was a captain of this team. You still remember the Jake Smiths. These guys are heroes. You're going to remember these guys here in North Bay for a long time and what they did wearing the green. And I think that's a testament. They say banners fly forever. There's going to be 3 of them in the rafters. Of course, there's going to be a little asterisk next to those that it's like the Buffalo Bills getting to 4 straight Super Bowls and losing, unfortunately. But at the same time, that's 3 more banners from how bad and how much of a disarray this team was. And really, if you think about it, half a season turnaround, because then COVID happened, a half season turnaround from December until the season was shut down, to come back that next year and immediately win a Central Division title. Nothing short of amazing. And a lot of these guys were the guys that came in and were the horses to do that. Banners do fly forever, and they'll forever be up in Memorial Gardens. And I'm going to be a little bit sad about that. That, you know, these guys that I have personal relationships with might never wear the jersey again.
It's so true about what you say. I only really started following the team very closely about halfway through the season last year when I started here. And like 14, 15, 16, 24, like those will forever be assigned to the guys who wore them this season. But I don't think I'll be able to think of it any other way. Just Wakely, Romani, Van Steensel, Nelson, so many of the guys that are a part of this team. It's going to be weird seeing somebody else wearing those numbers at a certain point. But just to get to see them play as a unit, to just be in the Gardens and see how much joy they bring all the people that watch them, to how much they mean to the community, and just how skilled and wonderful these dudes are. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. I mean, look at how they ingrained themselves in the community with Wake's Sake, Ty's troops. Before Ty was here, 24 belonged to Brad Chenier, and he was a captain, and he was a heart and soul player. No disrespect to Brad, who was a great player. 24 is Ty Nelson's now. Wakely, can't remember the last person to wear 14. I remember Curtis Evans, and he wasn't that special, so 14's his. I look at 23, and 23's had Barclay Goodrow. It's had Nick Mutry, who came in as from the captain of the Saginaw Spirit that second year. Even a guy like Daniel Verity, and most of them were pretty good. I mean, Barclay Goodrow was basically carried that team on his back to the OHL finals that first year. Nick Mutry came in and really helped solidify the middle 6 that next year. Sandus Phil Manis, man. Like
The Mandus.
Sandus, the Mandus, Phil Manis. Like, didn't really get to meet him too much due to some circumstances, but 23, he's up there with Barclay Goodrow as the top guy to wear 23 since the battalion have been here. And I think you've been here for 4 years, and as dark as those days seemed, to sit here and say in 10 years, you've made the Eastern Conference Finals 5 times. You've won the Central Division 4 times. That in a league where turnover is such a big deal, like this is the cycle and we're just living through it right now. I don't think you can take that away. Like, that is ridiculous. That's almost London Night, like, you know,
putting up that many quality seasons where you're having that much turnover, especially right after COVID, where a lot of that happened. Mm-hmm. That's incredibly impressive.
Kassie, how are we feeling? I like putting you on the spot. It's really fun.
I know. It's not fun for me, though.
That's why I love it.
Sucks.
It sucks. How are we feeling after we've been depressing now for the last little bit?
Honestly, not good.
No?
No.
All right. Well, with that being said, we'll try and liven things up on the other side as we'll talk Powassan and Voodoos. We'll be back with more on the other side of this commercial break.
Meals are a special time for families to gather, share their day, and spend quality time together. Those dinners are made extra special when you add tropical produce found in the markets and grocery stores that carry La Huerta imports. La Huerta knows the importance of family, so they know which quality products make the best quality meals for your customers, whether it be Mexican Hass avocados, Brazilian figs, Ecuadorian red dragon fruit, or something just as exotic and special. To get your supply of the best tropical produce at competitive prices with brands buyers trust, contact La Huerta Imports at 705-752-1478.
Barry! Huh? I told you not to be scaring the customers.
Hey, Barry! Come on in for a bite. And bring Brianna with you.
For only 2 minutes up the hill, where you're only a stranger once.
Ready to embark on an electrifying adventure? Look no further than the Mitsubishi Outlander, available in gas or PHEV, the SUV that redefines excellence. Recently awarded the best midsize utility vehicle in Canada for 2023 by AJAC. This bold and sophisticated SUV delivers advanced performance, safety, and tech, plus peace of mind with its standard super all-wheel control and the best warranty in the business. With red-hot deals and plenty in stock, your award-winning drive starts with the Mitsubishi Outlander.
Why is Northern Honda servicing more cars of all makes and models? Let's count the ways. 1. Our state-of-the-art facility has award-winning technicians. 2. Northern Honda has the lowest tire price guarantee, no matter what you drive. 3. The lowest synthetic oil change guarantee, and every 5th oil change is free for all makes and models. Plus, new Honda buyers get brake pads for life. See the service difference at Northern Honda, 1250 Seymour beside Home Depot.
Community engagement is one of our core focuses at McDonald's. The key is finding the right people who are passionate about the same things we are, helping kids be kids. McDonald's proudly supports local organizations such as the North Bay Regional Health Center Foundation, Big Brothers Big Sisters, One Kids Place, the Children's Aid Society, and Ronald McDonald House Charities. Stop by McDonald's on 1500 Fisher Street, North Bay to see how we can serve you and the community every day.
And we welcome you back. And the last time we did this, we were pretty hyped because the Voodoos were going to the NOJHL finals. And they lost in 5 games.
Yep.
So that was over pretty quick. Although the nice thing was it was in Sudbury. So we got to take in a lot of the games. Or, well, I know Kassie and I got to take in all of them. You came to the one on the road.
Yep.
Game 2. And then you were there for the home games. Ben stayed away all playoffs, which we liked. Thank you.
I wasn't allowed to come.
Yeah, Tucker Shields, thanks you. He did score a couple of nice goals in the playoffs. But yeah, the Voodoos falling into the Greater Sudbury Cubs 4-1. Sudbury's getting set for the Centennial Cup. I do have to say, if we're going to talk about social media, Oshawa's apparently a little bit more scummy, but man, the passive-aggressive tweets and stuff coming out of the Cubs during that series was just brutal.
What was worse, the Cubs or the Gens?
Cubs.
Really?
Gens made one bad post that pissed off. And that post is worse than anything that the Cubs made. But the Cubs have the volume. You know?
That outweighs the severity of the post.
I would say so, Harrison.
Well, they kept going oh yeah, the Voodoos got...
Yeah, oh yeah. They took our captain out of the series, or they took him out for 2 games, and we still came in
Your
rallied.
captain got suspended because he did something suspension-worthy. The Voodoos didn't do jack, but follow protocol.
Yeah.
You tell him, slay, queen. What What? I'm trying to be your
Now's
hype
my
man.
turn. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, everyone gets to be explicit once today. Cassie, we're
trying
waiting
to
for the
hype
perfect
you up.
opportunity for you.
I know I did it, but I didn't do it on live.
It's true. Well, we still have the audio, and I might put it in there just to put it. No, I'm just kidding. Cassie, I wanted to get your opinions on that series because you were there for all 5 games with me. We went up to Sudbury for game 1, which was a great victory for the Voodoos. And then the next day they fall in game 2, and then that ended up being the last Voodoos victory of the year.
I know that I was nervous, definitely, for that.
Yeah, you if you were like older, I'd say you were getting like some gray hairs for sure.
Oh yeah. I had hope in them, but I also was bracing myself for like for disappointment, obviously.
Yep.
They did really good in game 1. I was actually very happy with that, but I was a little upset that they didn't get one at home, obviously, because they didn't get one for Timmins either, and so it was a long wait since the first round of playoffs, but
The last home victory came on March 27th.
yeah, that was a while away. But overall, it was decent. They played pretty well, and Sudbury was kind of they're just an team, but like I don't know how else to say it.
No,
Okay.
you're absolutely right. It was
Slay Queen. Somehow we made it.
Yep.
Then say it. I don't even think your microphone's on.
Oh,
don't
no,
hear-
it's not.
Yeah.
Exactly. I said that was my line. Who's
Whose
running
line
this
is
show?
it? Whose line is it anyways?
It's hard
Don't
doing this
matter.
whole like press the
What
mute
are
button,
you
press
doing,
on.
Harrison?
I'm scrolling through the NOJHL scores, but
He's-
it starts at the current date when you go on the website. So I have scrolled back from May.
Oh,
This whole thing's just falling apart in the last 5 minutes.
All because of me stealing Ben's line. That's karma right there. All right, Harrison.
So
Are you ready, or do you want me
No,
to hold on?
I am ready. I am ready. It was as close as a 5-game series like feels. The one game I went to in Sudbury was a 2-0 loss. They got a lot of shots on net. They just got caught in the third period. They frankly got partially goalied at certain points, and it was a lot of
2 straight games of shutouts.
yeah, like there's only so much you can do to plan against that. They had a lot of fantastic opportunities, just a matter of inches, even at home when there was close games. Man, in that final home game, I was sitting down at the one end that Sudbury was at in overtime, and I just saw the play develop down towards Dorocolo, seas parted as the puck just punched through the hole to send that game to overtime. It was just everything happening at the exact moment it needed to for that puck to go in.
Wasn't that the overtime winner?
It was the overtime winner. It was just
Because you were close by when they scored the tying goal
yep.
on Dorocolo, which
It was so close.
yeah, because Turner or it was. I
think
think
it
it was
was
Turner that had just scored. No,
Yep.
it was McMillan that had just scored, and it was like 10 minutes left in the third. And it's like you just have to hold on to this very next shift. Newton goes down and scores.
Yeah, it was, and that was kind of the series. It was close, but it had to be scrappy from the Voodoos. They weren't going to be the team to dominate, and well, by the result, they weren't. But they fought hard. They had a really good showing in the finals, and like, let's be real, we were excited they got past the first round. We weren't sure how the second round was going to go. So the fact that they made it to the finals and they made things interesting was just frankly awesome to see. Was it the result? Was it the overall showing we hoped for? No, of course not. We wanted a victory. It's the finals. You want that. You want them to go to the Centennial Cup.
Mm-hmm.
But all in all, I think you got to give a tip at the cap because they played a really good series. Sudbury just had that extra edge, and their goaltending was outstanding. And that's not a knock against Dorocolo at all. That is not a knock. A lot of the games throughout the entire playoff run from the Voodoos, you can thank him for so many incredible saves,
especially in overtime.
They won 6 out of 7 overtime games or was it 7 out of 8?
It was 6 out of 7.
It was 6 out of 7 overtime games in a playoff run, which is just unreal. They played basically 2 games more than they actually have on the count with the amount of periods they played. It was ridiculous. They were resilient. They kept fighting time and time again, and it was just a pleasure to watch. It's a shame that it went down the way it did, but man, what a hard fighting group. They looked so resilient throughout this entire playoff run.
Ben, your thoughts from afar? I know when we talked last, we had talked about, our expectations for that series. So
yeah, it was going to be a big hill to climb.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised by the result. I'm disappointed. I was hoping that they do better. And after that first game, you're like, oh, there's a chance. But I think at the end of the day, I think the better team won, as hard as it is to say. Yeah, I just think the better team won at the end of the day. But the Cubs were also... there was a huge discrepancy between the West and the East. And I think you see that year in and year out. And it's going to be a lot of work to try to narrow that gap. But I think overall, if you look at the work that, Chris Dawson and Peter Goulet have done from bringing people in, bringing in the American guys, the McElhaney's, the Turners, the McCarthys. I think, was there another American that joined this year? Yeah, but he didn't join this year, though.
Yeah, well, he was here the year before.
Yeah. So when you look at the impact that they've made in the offseason, they did pick up Charette. Unfortunately, he didn't really play in net because he was injured. Dracula did what he had to do when he had to do it. I don't think he really had that many bad... He was a lot like Mike, how he was with the Battalion. I think it just really came down to there's a mismatch between the East and the West, and you saw it in that series. And you can't... Unlike where the Battalion, where you're disappointed that they didn't go as far as you did, I think for me, for the Voodoos, getting to that final was a big achievement, and then anything else would have been gravy. And it is what it is, and you kind of feel for the guys who were that came in to win a championship that are now gone. But I think you can also be proud about the fact that you took that step. That we talked about the Battalion not being able to take the step 3 years in a row. The Voodoos took that step this year, and you have to be happy about it.
Yeah, I'm sad it ended, but I'm not sad about the run itself because, again, like Harrison said, we were putting on a brave face on the podcast when we picked Timmins or Voodoos to beat Timmins when we both said at the same time, Voodoos in 6. But I think we both also knew that there was an understanding that it could go very quickly the other way. And that series is still so wild that the home team lost every game. Zach Turner scored with 25 seconds left in Game 7 to give them the lead, which was remarkable. That was another great night because that was the night that the Battalion came back against the Wolves, and that was the night that the Voodoos went on to go and win to go ahead. Schedule was a little bit unkind, having only one day between, but it is what it is. That's what happens when you go to 7. The run itself was magical. It was fun to be around the team. And when they came off the ice after that final game in Sudbury, I thanked all the players as they came off. There was a couple, that they came and hugged some guys, and there was a couple that I hugged as well, like D-Rock, Caleb, McElhaney, those guys, those were the guys, and not one of them, every single one of them had tears in their eyes. Even like someone like Caleb, who is probably coming back, Duracolo, his junior career is not over. But yeah, like it was very sad and it was nice to get that moment with them. And then they went in after giving them a few minutes. Peter and the coaching staff went into the dressing room, and Chris went in, and I kind of snuck in the back, and I had the fortune of being in the dressing room while they got to address the players one last time. And as you watch the spirits kind of lift in the dressing room as they were talking, it was not, the sting wasn't as hard anymore. I kept looking at Duracolo, and he was just in the corner, by him. Like, he was just in his head because to him, he had failed, right? Like, they had just scored with a minute left to go ahead in that game, in game 5. And he has nothing to be ashamed of. He had an outstanding playoff run. And I think what really killed me while I was in that locker room was, even though the door was closed, nothing could dampen the sound of what was happening out on the ice.
Yeah.
Nothing could dampen the music, the celebration. And that was really sad and really gut-wrenching. And I'm only here as a broadcaster and a fan. I can't imagine what it was like to be those guys in that dressing room in that moment, where you have a chance at immortality like that, and it slips away. But that's also me being sad about it. For the Powassan Voodoos team, they haven't been here since 2017. They should have been here in 2019-20. We all know that something in the world happened. And then the Voodoos kind of were spinning their wheels the last 2 years, trying to get back to that. And to take this organization that's always one of the top tier teams in the NOJHL to finally get back to the finals, I think that's a huge step. I think that's a big feather in the cap of, head coach Peter Goulet and Chris Dawson. It's going to help you recruit. It's going to help you, bring players. Players are going to want to return because they're going to want another kick at the can. I think this is, in the long run, going to help them more than it's going to hurt them, even though you lost in the finals. I think that's only going to help this team.
Yeah, and they played fantastic, and the Voodoos organization continues to impress with the type of players and the type of people that they're able to have on their team and produce and help nurture. And it's just an incredible staff over there. There's been a couple of notable changes to the assistant coaches. And you have to note that both Joshes have moved on to different opportunities, and that's exciting.
Yeah. I do want to speak about that in a moment. But
yep. So just briefly mentioning that, it's been wonderful watching this team. A lot of heart, a lot of incredible talent, and just the organization as a whole is absolutely incredible. They've been incredible to us, and just it's a small barn in Powassan, but when that thing gets rolling, there's nothing like it. It's absolutely incredible environment to be in.
Yeah, it's nothing beats hockey night in P-Town.
No, sir.
Nothing beats that for sure. And I love calling those games. And that's the other thing that, to me, on a selfish level, we got to call NOJHL final games.
Yeah.
And that's something that we never got to do with the OHL because everything that happened in them this year. We got to be, and I said this on the podcast going into that, Thomas Mercier runs a great ship in Sudbury. And I would argue we had the two of the league's greatest broadcasts left in the finals. You can't, for a recruitment side of things on this league, that's great too. But selfishly, I've never been more nervous to broadcast a game than I was for Game 3 of the NOJHL finals.
I remember you right before the game, and it was like I could tell you were thinking about it. And you'd briefly mentioned that, but it was just like, he's ready, he's going. But
I don't usually get nervous for games anymore. That was a big one. That was like a big milestone kind of moment, and that was huge. And I absolutely fantastic moment. Shout out to Cameron Lemke and Dylan McElhaney for killing my voice for the rest of the playoffs. So with the back-to-back overtime goals in 24 hours. My favorite thing about the McElhaney goal is you could hear both me and Ben almost harmonize at the same time going, oh, when he scores on that one. But anyways, as you had mentioned, the two Joshes are moving on. So Josh Dale, who's been with the team for what feels like forever, is stepping down to become the head coach of the U18 Trappers. So it's kind of like you're stepping down to move up kind of thing. He's going to take over that. He's also been very adamant about keeping an open relationship with the Voodoos and Peter Goulet for development and everything for his players. So really excited to see what Josh does to a revamped Trappers organization. Josh Hardiman is moving on to become a skills coach down in Kingston. And on a personal note, he's going to have a baby. And that's really exciting. And that's why Josh Hardiman is leaving, because he's been Peter's right-hand man forever. But he's going to be a father. And congrats, Josh. Really great. And finger guns for everybody. I had to throw that. When I made my like little reel, I had to throw that in there because he would always do it whenever I was filming down there. And yeah, hats off to the players that were just great as well. Coming in though is exciting news.
Oh yeah.
You're getting an NHL veteran. You're getting an OHL veteran. You're getting a guy who scored 60 plus goals in the OHL. You're getting a guy who won an OHL championship. Some guy named Wayne Gretzky assisted on his first NHL goal.
Yeah,
Vitaly Yachmanev is going to be the new assistant coach in Powassan. His son, Tomas Yachmanev, is one of the most beloved Voodoos of all time. I think that is not just a great hire for, the experience and everything. It's a great marketing hire.
Yep.
It's a great hire, optics wise. Everything about this, and him and Peter, I think, are going to be unstoppable behind the bench.
It's so exciting to see that, and being down at the last Voodoos game, and he was down there in the corner, and people were just excited by the energy around that, and the Voodoos organization just keeps getting better and better, and it's certainly a change having the Joshes gone. They were with the team for so long and just absolutely fantastic. It's exciting to see this new chapter start to develop, see this team change in different ways and in some ways better. It's just this season comes to an end, but there's always that anticipation, that excitement, because junior hockey never slows down. We may be done broadcasting and taking a little bit of time off, but the wheels keep on turning. Camps are going to be happening throughout the summer.
Before we know it, it'll be that weekend in July where we'll be at Pete Pelangio watching the new prospects and everything.
And it's just exciting times all around for hockey in the North Bay area.
Yeah, and I mean, Peter's going to be down at the Chowder Cup again in Boston, and that's where he was able to, work relationships with Turner, work relationships with McElhaney, kind of thing. It's going to be fun to see what kind of players they can come in, what kind of maybe battalion prospects they're able to pick up as well. Because picking up Wraith this year was one of the best pickups. He rewrote the record book for goals by a 16-year-old. So, and then in the playoffs, he was one of the top 5 point scorers in the playoffs. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this one. So I'll go around the table one last time just for you guys to kind of get your final thoughts. Kassie, just your final thoughts on our graveside ceremonies here for the Powassan Voodoos and North Bay Battalion.
Can I go last?
Okay, fine, Harrison.
I'm going to toss this back to Kassie, and it's an easier question. Don't worry.
No, make it tougher.
What was it like coming in and watching the Voodoos the entire season and getting to know the team and getting to kind of experience that sort of side of things?
You should be doing the interviews. I'm done. This is my last episode of the Frontline. I can go on vacation.
Wait,
now.
no, I wanted the break.
It was an amazing experience, honestly. I hadn't really known much about the Voodoos. I didn't really watch them except for one game the year before, I think, or who knows. But
who knows? No
one will.
I didn't know anybody there. I didn't even know my aunt worked there.
What?
Oh, you missed all of that?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, no.
Oh, I thought he didn't. I thought I mentioned this before.
No.
Oh, okay. Anyways, so I came into this place where I just didn't have any knowledge of the team, anybody there, and it was great because I was able to meet the head coach, became good acquaintances with the general manager.
By the way, good. Every time Peter sees her, he's like, "What are you doing hanging out with this guy?" He told her flat out after game 1, he's like, "Do you want to ride the bus back with us so you don't have to sit in the car with him?"
Yeah, that.
Peter's great.
He is really great.
Best beard in the league.
Undoubtedly.
I don't really know much else to say, honestly, that I got a really good experience, and I'm very thankful for this opportunity that I got to be able to actually step outside of my comfort zone and maybe have a new job choice maybe on in the future.
Who knows?
So that begs the follow-up question. Think he'll be back next year?
I mean, I hope, but
that's a no.
Yeah.
No. Bye, Kassie.
No.
Bye, Kassie. Hope you find your dad.
I mean, I do hope, but it's not my choice, kind of. It's up to my supervisor.
So, Kortney.
Okay, well, we'll come back to this. Harrison, your thoughts?
To sum up both of these seasons in a word, it would be, and I think you said it last night in the group chat, resilience. And it was just pushing through things for both the teams on the ice and for covering them. Because we ended up a little short-staffed this year at certain points. We had to make adjustments, and it was just pushing through and trying to reach your goals no matter what, as friggin' corny as that sounds. Said it with Ben on the After Action Report. Cliches are cliches for a reason, because they have meaning, because they're true. And both teams put on a hell of a show this year. Had some of my favorite hockey moments I've ever gotten to experience. Covering the Voodoos from down on the ice was just absolutely incredible from a personal perspective. And just getting to be around that environment. We all work like regular jobs, except for Kassie, who goes to half a day of school. But other than that, like, we wouldn't do this if we didn't friggin' love doing it.
Yeah.
And there's no other experience like covering these teams, getting to just experience hockey at this level and watching how far these guys push themselves in all aspects of it, whether it's the game, whether from the perspective of the Battalion and the Voodoos, just getting involved in their communities. I know the Voodoos did a lot with the Powassan Library and working within the community there. We talked about the Battalion with the Ties Troops, the Wake Sakes, and other things that they do within the community. It's such a wonderful hockey experience to just be around in North Bay, and this kind of wraps up my first full season doing this with you guys, and it's been I wouldn't say it's been completely a joy, but it has been an experience unlike anything else, and I can't wait to get back at it.
I can. No, I'm just kidding. It has been a joy, but I'm pretty excited for a couple
I am
of
excited
months.
for a break.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's soon enough, it'll be the Voodoos golf tournament. We'll be like, we're doing this again.
Oh, no.
We're going to shoot like 50 over par. Ben, your final thoughts?
Yeah, it's been a season.
Yep.
It's been interesting. Like, there's been ups and downs, right? Been very long, so it's exciting to be over. But I think from what people have said, like from an on-ice perspective with the Battalion, it's frustrating that they lose again in the finals. Individually, though, for the players, there's a lot to be happy about. I think you look at the individual performances of like what Mike did in the playoffs, what the top line has done, the steps that guys like Procession and Tarian have done. Some of the stuff that, like, what happened at the trade deadline. There's a lot of good stuff to look back and be happy about. Obviously disappointed at the end of the year, but a lot of bright spots on an individual basis. Again, a lot of question marks going into next year, but we'll have to see how that pans out come September and all the off-season stuff is done. For the Voodoos, though, I think you look at the opposite and you say they took a big step forward. They finally got over the hump that is the Eastern Conference Finals. And yeah, they hit kind of a wall after the first game of the finals. But again, from an individual performance, you have guys like Wraith Smith, you have Lemke, you have Little, you have what Durocklo did, what the Americans did. Pretty much that whole team was just fantastic from top to bottom. So I think a lot of things that individually people have to be proud of, and it's been a lot of fun.
It has indeed. I'll wrap things up again by saying a huge thank you to everyone who's tuned in this year, to everybody who helped support us this year. I don't think this is the end of the podcast this year because I kind of have to keep going because somebody's in a co-op until the end of June. So this isn't by any means the end of season 4, but it pretty much is the end of season 4.
What are we going to talk about?
That's a good question. I don't know. Movies?
Yeah.
The NHL?
Yeah. Okay.
Free space.
Yeah. Pretty much. So anyways, keep on tuning into the Frontline, but this is essentially season 4's finale, and the next is just kind of that weird, like, oh no, there's actually some special episodes out here. But yeah, I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Kassie, for coming in and being a great intern.
Except when you're on your phone.
And
we're trying to record.
Yeah. Really kind of, it's been fun to watch you grow and develop and, get out of your comfort zone a little bit. I know we threw you to the Wolves the one game that we had to get you on color commentary.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I'm not sorry.
Harrison, it's been great having you around for a full year. That was one of the shrewdest moves I think that we did acquisition wise last year, was picking you up, because all we saw was you on TikTok and we're like, who the hell is this bastard? And why is he stepping in on our territory? And then we're like, wait.
You did what every big box store does to the competition.
It's exactly it.
Literally.
That's exactly it. We're like, screw this guy. Okay, we know we're going to get him. And then we went out and got him. We wooed him with a big lunch at Average Joe's.
Yeah. Average Joe's.
Average Joe's Eatery and Pottery Bar.
Or simply with a cocktail in hand.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's been fun having you around. And again, our social media would have taken a huge hit if it not for you, because we didn't really know what we were doing because we're old.
It was a heck of a learning experience.
Yeah. And I really appreciate you taking that, basically and running with it and doing a fantastic job and taking ideas that you saw from like other people like Brad, who came in and helped out too as well with that, and really incorporating that. You missed out on the Reese Smetham celebration though, so I will always hold that against you.
I will hold it against me too. I deserve everything I get for screwing up that shot.
That was so good. And then it was like, We'll make sure that's in the pamphlet for the training camp next year. If you score a goal in this corner, skate towards this man.
Yeah, I need to wear like a cone hat or something.
Yeah.
I need to wear high vis in the corner.
Yeah, you do. Huge thanks to Ben Long as well, coming out, running production and everything in Powassan, and coming on the podcast a couple of times and really stepping up on the After Action Report, which again you did as well. And everybody who listened to the After Action Report, that was Harrison's baby. Harrison came up with it. We needed to pivot, and we needed to pivot quick. And Harrison was like, here's this pitch idea that I have. And we were like, yep, let's go with it. So it put a lot of extra work on Ben's Sargent, but
sorry.
That was Harrison's baby.
Harrison had the idea. I just had to execute everything.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Huge shout out to that. I want to take a moment and really highlight Dallin Wakely, who's been nothing but fantastic to me over this little last 3 years, since the moment I met him on Zoom for an episode of the podcast, and his family, out of this world. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention either of them really on the broadcast last night. Shared a couple of text messages with him and his grandfather, Papa Mike, who's become a friend the last few years, and a really good sounding board, especially when things weren't going good this year. He became a really good confidant, and I can't say enough about that, man.
Shout out Papa Mike.
Yeah, and back to the Frontline gushing. Shout out to Brad. Didn't really know what we were getting in you, Brad, because you tore your ACL last year. But you really stepped up this year. You came prepared. Your NFL podcast took off. You really stepped up. You were when you came down after working 12 hours to Powassan, and the way you got that McElhaney video. And he was on the glass shaking it like he was having the time of his life. Just amazing. Again, huge shout out to Ben Sargent at the end of the table. He was a bit of a silent partner this year for various reasons, but he's back now, baby, and we're super excited. And again, back to Matt Sukram, with whom he stepped in. I had done this with Tom, and then Matt basically stepped in with the broadcast idea, and then next thing it snowballed, and Matt went out and got us sponsors and has really turned this into more than just a podcast. So shout out to Matt for that. I'm excited to get some time off. It's been a personal hell year for me, so I'm really excited to take some time and step away. Screenshots last forever too, so I will say that. But again, thanks to everyone for listening. Last thing is last. Ben, do you think we should keep Kassie around?
Oh, man. You're putting this on my shoulders?
No, I'm putting it on everyone's shoulders, but I'm going to you first.
Oh, okay, cool. That makes it sound... I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, sure.
Harrison?
Absolutely.
All right. So to quote,
Absolutely.
to quote one of my favorite games, this one's a little bit more diluted, but this one's mind is concluded.
What?
My mind has been concluded for a while. Kassie, we're going to keep you around.
Really?
100%.
Oh, yeah.
Why wouldn't we?
I don't know.
You bring us popcorn at the games. For that alone, you deserve a job. No. Yeah, you heard it here on the podcast. Cassie's sticking around.
I'm actually so excited for that.
There you go. You'll hear more of Kassie next year, I'm sure. Well, you'll hear more of Kassie still this season, too. So, with that being said, though, do you want to make a speech or you good to go?
She has too much to do.
I'm not good on the fly.
She has too much to do. She only has school, half the day.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
takes up a lot of her time.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
We'll work on the fly.
Yeah.
I'm still processing the fact that I can come back.
Yeah, I guess so. If you must. Anyways, that'll do it here for this one. Again, big thanks to the Battalion and Voodoos for giving us memorable seasons. Looking forward to what the future holds and what everything brings. You know where to stream us. You know where to find us. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out for a really depressing broadcast for for Game 7 against the Generals. That was, again, huge that it just came together in 24 hours and we were able to pull that off, and everyone really pulled their weight, and I'm really proud of everyone about that too. So that was huge. Everybody was here except for Brad, who you can excuse because it was his birthday.
Yep.
Happy birthday, Brad.
Happy birthday, Brad.
And happy birthday, Mike.
Happy birthday, Mike.
Yeah, got to get one more. So with that being said, I'm Kortney Kenny. Keep your eye on the front line.
The Frontline, hosted by Kortney Kenny, the official podcast of the Powassan Voodoos.